Yes. Well, okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar about using tasks in English language teaching. Today's February 8th. Almost forgot the date. And welcome to everyone who is joining today. A few rules before we proceed with our speakers. So please make sure that you do not put any of your personal information into the chat box. Please do not share it with other people. We're just sharing. We can share things about our teaching practice and general things about our learners, but no other personal information needs to go in there, or please sharing any adverts. If you do put something inappropriate in there, then the moderators can remove you from the event. So this session, we are very happy to say, is as inclusive as possible. And if you are having difficulty listening with the English, you are allowed to change, listen to the Burmese translation. So we have the two languages happening at the same time. And actually, we have 3 languages happening at the same time, because we have Miss Lily that is doing the sign language today. So if you have someone that it would be useful for, please do share this event with them. All the Teacher Takeaway series have a sign language interpreter. So please do share that. Thank you. Okay, we want you to be as interactive as possible, as you already are, saying hello and giving your information and your opinions in the chat box. Yes, microphones are muted, don't worry. Yes, don't worry, there's no noise, we can't hear any noise, and we can't see your screens either. So you can just use the chat box, so no problem. And please use the Q&A box, but only use the Q&A box for questions. All your like small interaction comments like yes or no, or things that the presenters say, you can always just use the chat box for that. Q&A is for like sort of full questions that we will try and get to at the end. So we'll have the Q&A session at the end. We have about 40 minutes of presentation and then a Q&A at the end. We'll give you a survey link at the end of the session, and then you can get your certificates. And if you have any problems during the session, if you have any issues at all, and you would like to report them to our safeguarding team, please do. So please take a screenshot of this and please report it if you do feel that you have an issue. Okay, just to let you know that next week we have our final webinar in the series, and it will be on productive skills. So please join us for that one next week. And today we have our great session on using tasks in English language teaching. So I'm going to hand over to our 2 teachers today, Angel Pyo and Puin Yi Win, and they are going to take over for today. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Okay, so thank you for coming to our webinar. So I would like to start by demonstrating a task, right? So that is before we go to the definition of the task. So I would like to kick off with the demonstration of the what a task is, right? I want you to guess. I want you to make a guess. Can you guess where Amy is exactly from? Like which city or town? Right? Don't say England, right? So this is very big, right? So I want you to make a guess in the chat box where Amy is from. Yeah, can you guess where Amy is from? This is the task for you. So you have to make a guess. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Ima, thank you.
Okay, thank you for like all your answer, like all your guesses. Now I want you to find out whether your guesses are right. How will you find out? You have to find out. So this is your task. Okay, so I want you to
Facebook.
find out like where Amy is from. Like so now you have already made your guesses. Now how will you find out where Amy is from?
Not Agnes, you are right.
Yes, yes, of course. Ask Miss Amy. Please ask Miss Amy so she will give the answer. Okay, yes, we will have to ask her. Yes. So please ask Amy. Amy is here to answer your question. Yes, right. So some of you are now asking the question, where you from? Yes, where you from, teacher Amy? Yeah, dear Amy, where you from? Yes. Thank you for asking your question. Amy, can you please like give them the answer?
From Mars.
From Mars.
Yeah, it's true. The moon, from the moon. Answer
Yes,
me. What?
Amy, yes, you can give the answer now.
Give the right
Right.
answer.
Yeah,
Tell
right.
me where you're from. Exactly, good. Someone said, please tell me where you're from. Please tell me your exact address. Whoa. Actually, I
Wow.
don't have an exact address, but I will tell you. Oh, someone's been online. That's very close. Wei Yanlin has already searched for it online. The town I'm from, or it's a very small town is Pitsea in Essex. Yes, I'm from Heaven.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you for participating in the task. Okay, thank you, everyone. So this is the task, right? So this is the task. So how? Like I will demonstrate. So firstly, so I assign you the task, right? So that is to find out where to make a guess and then to find out where Amy is from. So this is like creating the need for you to communicate, right? So, and you perform the task, you make a guess, and then you ask Amy to get the answer, right? And then I check the task achievement whether you have got the right answer or it's okay to make a wrong guess, right? So that is okay. So this is a demonstration of a task, right? So we will go to the definition a bit, right? So this is the definition given by Ellis, Rod Ellis. So I want you to read it for a while so that you have some, general idea of what a task is. Okay, so I think you have finished reading this one. So I want you to read this one too. Okay, so I think you have got some idea of what a task is. I will give you a simpler, like more manageable version of a definition of the task, right? A task, in my opinion, right? This is an activity, right, with a real world goal, right? So if you have a real world purpose in a task, in an activity, that is a task. So to put it simply. Okay, so according to Rod Ellis, there are 4 criteria of task. So in this webinar, we will be going through like one criterion by one, like so that is we will be going through all the 4 criteria. So we will start with the first criteria. So this is like a task involves like primarily like focus on meaning. So what do we mean by meaning? So meaning means like ideas, message, opinions, information. So when we communicate each other, we need meaning, right? So we have to focus on the message, not on the language, right? So we don't focus much on the language. We want to, when we find out where Amy is from, we are focusing whether, we are right or wrong, right? So that is whether, is it Manchester or is it London, right? So this is like you focus on the meaning, right? Focus on the ideas, focus on the information. So another criterion is a task has some kind of gap, right? What do I mean by gap, right? So a gap can be so many things, right? So if a gap can be in a task, a gap can be an information gap or a reasoning gaps, because people have like different ideas, and different opinions, of course. So that's why we have opinion gap, right? Or the gap is usually between the writer and the reader and the speaker and the listener, right? When we don't know where Amy is from, like we have the gap, right? So to complete the task, we have to fill the gap. So by filling the gap, so we're doing two things, right? We get the information, and at the same time we're learning. The students notice the gap. Oh, we have this gap. We don't have this information, so they're trying to learn it, right? So a gap, or I will put it like this is the reason for reasons to communicate. So if you don't have a gap, there is no reasons to communicate, right? So I will show you an example of a task. Do you think this is a task? So you can see a map on the right side, and there is some sort of example, right, on the left side, student A and student B talking. So using this map, so they're doing like asking for directions, right? So this activity, do you think this is a task? You can give your answer in the chat box. Okay, so I can see a lot of no here. Why? Get the reason. Okay. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Like, so most of you have got the idea, right? So there is no gap between the student A and student B. So because they are using the same map, right? So this is like they can see all the information here, right? So they can get all the information that they need. Is there a bank? Of course, here, right? So that is like they can see it on the map, right? So what is the point of communication if you can see all the information there, right? So I will show you a different function, right? So you have to create the gap to create a reason, right? To communicate, right? So you can see in this function, student A doesn't have student B's informations. They have different versions of the same map, but different versions. The information on that map are not the same, right? So you can see that. So is there a supermarket on the student's B map? Is there a supermarket? What about on the student's B map? Is there a bank? Is there a bank on this? So he has to look for find out where the bank is, right? So is there a bank? So they have to find out, they have to find out the missing information in their map from their friends, right? So there is a gap. So they need to communicate to get the message or information that they need. So they have to achieve the task. sometimes the students share the map, right? So the students share the map. So you cannot do it, right? So sometimes you have to be careful so that the students do not show the map to each other, right? So that is okay. So now you have the idea of what a task is by looking at the two criterions. So here, right? So here is the differences between a task and an exercise. For example, not an example. It's so in a task. So there is a real world goal, usually, right? So and then in an exercise, sometimes there is no real world goal. So the goal is just to master the language, right? So that's why it focus on language and then task focus on the meaning. For example, like when you ask your friends about their holiday, last holiday, so it is meaning focused. So they want to know, you want to know where they go, where they went, and then like which place, what they did, right? So it is meaning focused. But in an exercise, the goal is like for example, so to learn past tense, simple past tense. So meaning focus to know, to talk about less vacation. Language focus, it is to learn simple past tense, right? So you can see the difference there. So in a task, so they focus more on fluency, and then in an exercise, they focus more on the accuracy, right? So as task is student-centered because students have to perform the task using their own linguistic resources. So you were like, so it is at this point where we further explain my point, like my co-presenter. So, and it is more teacher-centered because teachers predetermine like which language item to master, which language item they will, do the activity in the class, right? So this is the end of my part, right? So point where I continue the presentation.
Okay, so let me share the screen first. Okay, thank you, Xiang Jiao. So I will continue with the presentation, with our discussion. So here, we have already discussed the two criteria that we have for using tasks in the classroom, the criteria of a task. So the first one is meaning focus, right? So when we do the tasks, there should be the meaning for the meaning to convey for the students to do that activity. And the second one is gap, right? There should be a gap when they do the activity. So this is the two criteria that that Xia Angzhou pay attention to or discuss. Here, before I discuss the other 2 points, it is not testing you, but do you still Xia Angzhou use the vocabulary, that particular vocabulary, when he present about the difference between tasks and exercise? So here in this sentence, we have got that task-based teaching is about creating opportunities for blank language use. So what I want you to do is that, can you please think of the vocabulary that we can use in this blank? You can type the answer in the chat box. Natural world, real world, okay. Meaningful, good. Meaning focus, okay. Authentic, okay. Meaningful, yes. Yes. So here, meaningful. So lots of people, I can see that you do understand the one that we focus on. When you use the tasks, we should pay attention to the meaning focused language use, right? This is the main idea or the key point that we want to highlight for today. When we use the tasks, we should create the opportunities for the students to use the language in a meaningful context. Okay, so out of the 4 criteria, Xia Angzhou has already discussed the first 2 points. A task involves a primary focus on meaning, And then the second point is that a task has some kind of gap. So for the third point, we have got the, the participants or the students choose the linguistic and non-linguistic resources needed to complete the tasks. So I will discuss this third point first. So in our traditional way of teaching, let's consider PPP. So presentation, predict, and then produce. So there are three P teaching method that we normally use in communicative language teaching. So in that kind of teaching method, we provide the language resources to the students, right? The teacher gave the language to the students to do the activity. So our intention is that the students have to master the resources. At the end of the activity, we hope that the students will use the language resources that we gave to them. So that is the way that we normally carry out in communicative language teaching. But in TPLT, our focus is a bit different. So our intention is that we want our students to produce communicative messages by using their own linguistic and non-linguistic resources. So here we have to consider what it means by the linguistic resources and non-linguistic resources. So as an example, in the previous example, asking directions or giving the directions. So in that kind of task, in the very beginning, we are not going to teach the language expressions to our students. For example, if you want to ask for the direction, you should use where is supermarket? Or you should go straight to the main road, turn left, turn right. So instead of teaching those language expressions before they do the tasks, we will let them experience, or we will let them use whatever knowledge of language they have in order to complete the tasks. So their language may not be 100% correct, but they will use the language they have to accomplish the tasks. So this is what we mean by we want our students to use their own linguistic resource. And then, in order to complete the tasks, sometimes their linguistic resource may not be complete or may not be correct. They can also use the non-linguistic resources to carry the meaning. For example, instead of using turn left, turn right, they can just say that left, right, like that one. And then for example, as an example, when they do the discussion activities, if they want to agree or disagree with a certain idea, instead of saying that yeah, I totally agree with you, no, they can nod their head or they can shake their head like that one. So instead of teaching the language to them, we can ask, we can let our students choose their own linguistic and non-linguistic resources to complete the tasks, but we are not going to correct them in the very beginning stage. This is the task, the third criteria of a task. And then the next one is that a task should have a clearly defined communicative outcome, which means that our final destination or our final aim shouldn't be the correct use of language. For example, let's use the previous exercise as a previous task as an example, giving direction or asking for the direction. So our intention or the outcome of the activity should be whether the students can give the direction to the other people or not. That should be our outcome. That is the communicative outcome. It's not the outcome shouldn't be correct use of language. So of course we will pay attention to there will be the expected language that we want our students to use. For example, that we have discussed earlier, use turn left, turn right, and those kind of things. But that like the correct use of language shouldn't be the final outcome. So the final outcome should be communicative outcome, whether the students can do certain things in like specific situation. For example, let's say that like we are going to we want our students to do the discussion about the pollution. So in that kind of situation, there will be the language expression that we want our student to use. For example, language for expressing the agreement and disagreement. But our communicative outcome, the outcome of the activity should be whether the students can create a plan to solve the problem of pollution in the neighborhood. So then, the outcome is something related to the communication or the message. So this is what, we would like to focus on, or that we have to pay attention to when you use the tasks. Of course, there will be the language focus, the language area or the expression that we want our students to be to use when they do the tasks, but the language expression is not the main idea or the focal point that we want to pay attention to. For example, here, let's take as an let's take the example, the first activity. What can you buy? So this is the activity. I would like to discuss as a first activity. So here we will have it's a kind of like pair work. So that will be the student A and student B. So for the student A, he or she has got the shopping list. Okay, so there will be the items in the shopping list that he or she has to go to the student B. And for the student B, he or she is the owner of the store. So the student B will also have the list of items for sale, as a stock in his or her store. So what they have to do is, for student A, he or she must go to student B and buy things at the store. And for student B, they also have to find out the items that the student A asks for. So here, when we look at the list, so in the student A list, we have got the milk, sugar, egg, flour, and then salt. And we also have got the items or the list for the store. And some of the items are missing in the student B list. So which means that student A may not get everything he or she wants, when they go and buy at the supermarket or at the store. Like that one. So they have to use the language to figure out which item student B has in his or her store. So here, for this activity, I would like to know that is this is this activity a task or not? If it is yes, why? And if it is no, and then why? Can you please give a response to that question? You can type the answer in the chat box. This activity is a task or not? D is just the activity. Yes. There is a gap, and it asks for linguistic and non-linguistic resources of the students. Yes, yeah. What each of them have got. Yes, yeah. Yes, a task is an activity. Yeah. Yes, okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a task. Yes, yes. Okay, thank you. Oh, yeah. As have to answer each other which items are wanted and which items are available. Yes, true. Very good. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for your responses. Yes, so here, when we look back at the activity, when we consider the criteria that we have discussed. So like there must be the the task must have a meaning, right? So I think this is the meaningful task, right? Because asking or buying the items or at the store is something that we normally do in our daily life, right? So the task is quite meaningful for our student. And in terms of the gap, there is a gap because when we talk about the gap, there is something that we need to be really careful. When we give the instruction to the students, sometimes they will this is what Sia Angel also mentioned earlier, sometimes the students will just show their cards or their sheets to each other, and they do not use the language, or they do not perform the task really. They just show their sheets to each other and check which items student B has got, that the judges or student A would like to buy. So that to prevent that kind of situation, we have to make sure that there is a gap. Okay, there is a gap. We have to instruct the students, or we have to make sure that the students knows the rules, and then we have to give the clear-cut instruction that they cannot show the cards to each other, and they have to figure out what kind of gap do they have, what kind of information do they have to figure out. So our instruction is also important when they use when they do the activity. And in terms of the linguistic and non-linguistic resources, based on the level of the students, they can do the activity in different ways. For the lower level students, if they do know the meaning or the description of the items, it is easy for them to perform the tasks. For example, for student A, he or she may say that make, and then the student B responds will be yes, yes. So then they can use very simple language and then the gesture to accomplish the tasks or to complete the tasks. And for the higher level students, they will just use the complex sentence structures. For example, good morning, I would like to buy the items to bake the cake. Do you have milk? And the student B might say that, yeah, which do you want? Like that one. So they can use the complex sentence structures based on the level of your students. You can they can use the different types of linguistic resources, and they can also use the non-linguistic resources. And of course, there is the outcome, right? Whether you can go to the store and buy the items at the store, that one, right? So this is that's why we can say that this kind of task is a task. And the only thing that we need to be careful is the language, the way they carry out the task. You should have the clear instruction, and you should also tell them the rules they have to follow when they do the task. Okay, so then the example pocket activity. So for this activity, let's say that the student, this is a kind of group work, the students will have we have found the items in the pocket of a stranger. So this is just the scenario. So we will be given the items for the students. So what they have to do is, as a group, they need to use the items as clues, and they have to fill in the chart to make predictions, as to who the person might be. So they have to guess what kind of person he or she is by using the items that we have found out in a pocket of a stranger. It's a kind of problem solving activity. they have to use the language. So like in the very beginning stage, the teacher will present or describe the items like from the pocket, in case your students may not understand or like may not know the the meaning of the items. So in order to carry out the task, they should know the meaning of the items. Like at least that's why we are going to make sure that the students have got the vocabulary, understand the vocabulary. So this is the very first step. In the second step, the students have work in groups, to complete the task by looking at like age, gender, and then the profession. So then as a group, after they have figured out after they have predicted, then we will do as a next step, we will do the class discussion of the students' prediction in the task or in the progress or in the process of the task. Like in the second stage, while they are doing the group work, sometimes when your students need language, we can help them or provide the language to talk to use when they make a prediction, like that one. So for this kind of activity, what I want to discuss is that, can you please think or consider what is the outcome of this task? What is the final outcome that we want to get? Yeah, problem solving, yes. At the end of the task, what the students be able to do, what we want them to do. Guessing, yeah. Thinking, yes. Working out. Prediction of facts, yes. Guessing, thinking, yeah. Identifying the skills, problem solving, yes. Problem solving, true. Like making the predictions, judgment, making connection, guessing. Yeah, thank you very much. True. Sorry, yes. Guessing, analyzing, critical thinking. Guessing, yes. So here, what we want them to do is that final outcome would be prediction, right? Guessing is a kind of true critical thinking skills activity, or it's a kind of problem solving. So they have to solve the problem, by using the items. They have to guess, right? What kind of person, what kind of the stranger is, what kind of person he or she is, like that one. So here, yeah. So for this kind of activity, final outcome or aim, if we make it smaller or if we narrow down the aim, so they have to guess who they thought the person might be, right? What kind of person he or she is, or by focusing on the items and using the items, and they have to focus on the age, gender, and profession, and they will guess who the person is. Like that one, in order to do so, in terms of the task materials, we can use very simple items the objects and then the chart. So for the target grammatical structure that we want or that we expect them to use is a kind of modals. We can call them epistemic modals or modal verb might, must, or could, for expressing the degrees of possibility or probability. So in here, when they carry out the task in the very beginning stage, of course, we are not going to discuss the language expression. So we are not going to teach the language expression, the grammatical structure first, But while they are doing the activity, like, in the very beginning stage, like they will discuss, they will look at the items and they will figure out the age group, the gender, and the profession of the person. After that, like, in a group, they will discuss, right, what kind of person he or she might be. And then as a class work, they will also like share their opinions with their friends. So before they share the opinion with their friend, between these two steps, we can discuss grammatical structure, like the models, like the systemic structure with the students. So like we are going, like when they talk, we will pay attention, but if possible, in some steps, we will also discuss the language expression. Line up, like the criteria that we primary focus on meaning, right? Like the tasks should have the meaning focus, like the tasks should be meaning focused activity. And there should be a gap, like it can be the linguistic gap, or like information gap, or opinion gap. And then the third point is that, in order to complete the tasks or to carry out the tasks, to accomplish the tasks, the participants can choose the linguistic, and then they can use their, only after that we will provide to the language. And then the next stage is that, our final outcome should be communicative outcome. So these are the 4 criteria that we want to focus on. But like in here, what I want to do is that, before we finish our discussion, I would like to know what is the most significant thing you have learned so far. So, we have discussed 4 criteria and some of the activities that you can do as a task. So are there any things that you remember, or that you think is the significant thing? Okay, Cap. Guessing. Okay. Anything significant that you have learned from us, like from our discussion? Meaningful communication. Okay. Non-linguistic and linguistic. Okay. Task has to be communicative. Yeah. Okay. Task is meaningful focus. Yeah. Ideas, task-based teaching. Thank you. Task should be communicative. Yeah. Creating an authentic task for a student to use the language. Okay, task versus exercise. Thank you very much. Yeah, there should be a gap. Task should be real world focus. Yeah, there should be outcome. Okay, task has to be communicative. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yes, so you have some criteria of tasks. Yes. Students use linguistic and non-linguistic resources. Okay, thank you very much. Wind up our discussion by saying that, when you use the tasks, we have to get the mindset that we should have is that get it right in the end, which means that, in our normal way of in our communicative language teaching, get it right from the beginning. We have got that kind of focus. So before we teach, we want our students to have the correct, to use the correct language expression. But when you use the tasks, the meaning comes first, and then the language will come later. It doesn't mean that we're not going to focus on the language. We will pay attention to the language, but it will come later. And then fluency first, and then the accuracy will come later. So the same concept. So the students need the exposure, and then they also need the opportunities to use the language meaningfully. So from during the process, they will develop the language system which works for them, even though they will make mistakes on the way of when they are doing the tasks. That's why when you use the tasks, meaning come first. language comes later, and fluency first, and accuracy later, and communication comes first, and then correction comes later. So I would like to, by saying all these things, I would like to wind up my discussion. Thank you very much for your responses and for your active participation. Thank you. If you have any questions or comments, we would like to welcome.
Thank you very much, Puent, and thank you to Anjor for your excellent presentation. Anjor is here and also Puent is here. Thank you. Everyone's saying thank you, thank you, thank you in the chat box. So let's have a couple of questions for you. One of the questions that has come up, well, there's two questions. I'll ask it in kind of two halves. Can you talk about the challenges that a teacher would face if a teacher is going to do a task in their class, what kind of challenges they might face, and that would link to what kind of planning or preparation they would have to do. So kind of the two things, can you cover like what kind of challenges? Yeah, and instructions, and so the challenges and also what kind of planning or preparation a teacher would have to do. So maybe, I don't know if you want to just talk about one of the tasks and kind of go back to that, like go back to the maps one, or up to you, but you can both answer. Anjor?
Yes. One of the challenges that we have to face when we carry out the task-based language teaching is students are not ready for it. Sometimes they're used to traditional way of teaching grammar, so they might feel a bit reluctant to communicate. And then another thing is they want to complete the task without using the language. So they find some shortcuts to complete the task. So without using the language. So it can happen maybe even using, their native language. So then we wouldn't meet our goals, right? That's why we have to sometimes go back to our why we have to do the task, right? So why we are doing this. So why we are doing this activity, why we are doing this task. So sometimes they just want to finish it. For example, like they have to, if they have to do find someone who activity, they will just ask. So and then take everything. They just want to finish it in a short, most of the time we do it as a competition. So we have to say, okay, bingo, or stop the bus, or so at the end of the, if you do it faster than any other people, you've got a star or something like that. That's why they want the star. They want to finish the task. So they forget about everything. So they forget about their goal, their purpose. So why they are here, right? So that is actually their purpose as a learner is to study the language, right? But they forget about it, and then they became very competitive, and then they just want to beat their friends. So they just find shortcuts in everything. So you have to, before you do the activity, you have to make sure that they understand why we're doing this activity, why they should dwell on the task instead of trying to finish the task.
Is there anything the teacher can do there, like kind of give points or take away points, like any kind of tricks that you can do? Or
yes, so we can do that. We can do we can win then so, or maybe we can have a rule so if you do this, so your team fail, and then they won't. This is because it is a competition. So if you trying, for example, a jigsaw reading task, only one of them can go and read at one time, but sometimes they just want to beat the other thing. So there's over competitive, and then two people from the same team go and read. So if you do this, your team will fail, and then you will be out of the competition. So we can have that kind of if they are too competitive. Most of the time students are just okay, so they want to be they want to have fun, right? Quinn, would you like to add something?
Quint here, yeah. Quint has been holding on to the connection the whole time, sometimes by a very thin thread, but she has hung on this whole time. Is she here now, or is she left? I think we've just lost her now. Quint, are you
Yeah.
there?
Yes.
No. I was going to say that. Oh, Quint, we can hear you, but we can't hear you.
Oh, really? Is it okay now?
Oh, now. Yeah,
Can
now
you
we can hear you.
hear
Yeah.
me?
Yeah, your connection sort of
Yeah.
comes in, it goes, oh, yeah, now, oh,
So
yes.
I think um,
No, we've lost you again. Maybe if you stop your video, Quint, for a minute. Maybe it
yeah.
might.
So can you, hello? Can
Yes.
you hear now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Like, as an add-on point, I think like, we can give the clear-cut instruction. So we need to give the instruction to the
No, I think we've lost Quint. Angela, do you want to continue that point?
Yes, one of the thing is like before we do the task, we have to scaffold the students, right? So that stage is very important, I think. That is one of the, it's, I usually give the example of like helping a child to learn how to ride a bicycle. So if you let it go very quickly, too soon, and then the students will not be ready to tackle the, you know, the ride a bicycle on their own, right? So, but if you hold on for too long, right, then the students will not be able to ride the bicycle on their own. So it is very important to let go at the right time. So to do the task on their own at the right time. So planning stage is the most important stage, I guess. So for me, as personally, I think that, you know, you have to let them go at the right time. So without giving the instruction very clearly, and then without planning for them for the task in details, then they might collapse. They might not be able to perform the task successfully. So you have planning stage is very important. You have to give them the language. Sometimes you have to like ask them to go back to their own resources. So I think that is one of the very important challenges that we have to meet the students at their level. Right? So that is very important.
I think, okay, Quint, are you there? Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest jobs for a teacher is to find out, but maybe one of the most important things is choosing something at their level. If it's too easy, then it's boring and then they're not really learning anything. If it's too hard, then you make them feel bad and then they can't do it. But obviously you've got to get it just so it's just above their level. And I think that's what the task is really good for. So have you really put in the steps before that? Will they be able to get some of that language? Will they be able to try and retrieve some? Have you taught them it before? Of course, if it's totally unknown, then it might be difficult. But yeah, Quint, are you there? But yeah, finding the right level for your
Yes.
student, but also just letting them try it and kind of being confident. I think it's a real balance of all the things sometimes. Can they do it? Should we try it? I'm not sure. Quint, go.
Yes.
You're back.
Yeah. Sorry, the connection is not strong enough.
No, I know, but you did good. You really did hang on for the whole session. You hung on really, really well. But let's get another question. So a good question, what we're talking about is what kind of steps the teacher can put in to try and help them do the task. And obviously with the task, it is more fluency focused. But what if you let them do the task, you set up the task, they do it, and there's still quite a lot of accuracy problems, then what should the teacher do to go back? One of the teacher's questions is they still can't get the accuracy. What can the teacher do there? Gwent, do you want to answer that?
Yes. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So here we also have got the task repetition. So I think doing tasks for one time may not be quite helpful if we figure out that the students still have the problem, to have the accuracy or to use the language correctly. What we can do is that we can change the tasks and we can ask them to do the tasks in different ways. That is what we call by task repetition. So we can ask them to do it may not be the same task, but we can do the similar tasks repeatedly. So then to make sure that they remember or they understand how to use those language expression in meaningful contexts.
Yeah, good. Doing it again. Yeah, Anjul, I think a lot of teachers think that we have to just do one activity, do it once, but actually we can easily repeat it and give them another chance. Anjul, what do you think?
I think, as I have already said before, planning stage is very important. We have to see the task as a pre-wind post activity. So pre-task, what are we going to do? Wind task, while we are doing the task, what is the teacher going to do? And then post task, what is the teacher going to do? Right. So we have to think about it carefully so that we have to zero in on the the target language, right? Your target expressions or target language, language items. So as one of the teachers is asking about the steps and then accuracy, I want to maybe we will use language planning before the task repetition. So we do the repetition, we do the task for the first time, and then we will find out what kind of language or what kind of gap is there, right? So what kind of I don't know, they may have they may have been making some mistakes over and over again. So maybe you might want to point that out as a language focused activity. So my suggestion is do the task and then go in the feedback and planning session before the task repetition. So before they do it again, so there should be some kind of planning stage for them so that they have the support, they have your support. Without that, they will be on their own and they will not be able to do the task successfully, right? So that's why even if they're still doing that kind of mistakes, the target on a target item, even after the task repetition, we can go back to the exercises, right? So this is like swinging the balance, right? So swinging from one side to another. So if they need help in the language area, we have to go back to the language side. So that's why we say that meaning first, language later. So at the end, you have to make sure that they get the language, right? They get the language so that they're not making mistakes anymore, right? So that is less and less, fewer and fewer mistakes. Yeah, I think that the closing stages are also very important so that you have then the feedback and language planning. They are very important.
That's very good advice. Very good advice. Yeah, you need to think about, the teacher needs to think about what it is that they don't, what aren't the students getting if there's some part of the language. I just put in the chat box, is it meaning or form or pronunciation? What part don't they get? What can't they do? Then you can go back to the task and do it again. If they don't understand the meaning of the word, of course, they're not going to use it. If it's pronunciation, maybe you need to do some sound practice. So find out what it is. Try and really focus in on what can't they do? What can they do? What can't they do? This is something that these teachers really need to collect the information for. It's what formative assessment is good for. Our session last week was about formative assessment. So really listening to your learners. Okay, if they can't do it, but what can't they do? Then we need to really be paying attention, making notes, finding out, seeing what they can do, what they can't do. Okay, I think we have come to the end of the session. If anybody missed the session this week, don't worry. Some people have just joined right at the end, but don't worry, it has been recorded. You can watch it again at a later date. And also I would very highly recommend just watching it again. If you did actually participate with us today, I think there's a lot of really good, interesting stuff and a lot of really useful help to make tasks in your class. So Angel, Pio and Point, thank you very much for staying with us today. Point, turn on your video for 1 second. Thank you. So you can say goodbye.
Thank you. And thank you for joining.
Thank you, British Council, and thank you all the teachers who joined today.
Yes,
Take
thank you
care.
very much. Yeah, well done for joining. I know it is still a Thursday and it is not the weekend, but you've done good. And I think sometimes it's actually better to keep it like with your teaching week. Sometimes, yes, it's good to also watch them at the weekend, but keeping with your teaching day is also a very good idea. Thank you very much. There was one more question about lower level learners. I don't know if you want to answer, but we are finishing now. So anything else we can try and answer in the future. Thank you very much. Bye, everyone. Oh, let's put sorry, let me put the PDF into the, sorry, I forgot to put the PDF in there. I shall put the PDF there. Thank you very much. We can stop the recording. Oh, sorry, I haven't done the end of the thing. We need to share all the things. Okay, so now I've put the PDF. I was ready just to end. I've put the PDF into the chat box. That's for you. So here you can see the post survey link. Sorry, I almost forgot to do all this. Here's the post survey link for you. You can please let us know how this session was for you, if it was informative, if there's any improvements that we could make next time for you, please let us know in the survey feedback form. Thank you very much. You can get your certificate here. Please take a screenshot or save it. Thank you very much. We will also put the link into the chat box for you. And please do try a lot of these tasks in your classroom. That would be very interesting to find out how that goes for you. This video will be so it has been recorded and it will be okay. Please do join us next week. Please do join us next week for another session. We have one more session in this series. So if you can keep going and power through to the end of this series, then you will have completed the 4 webinars in this series, in the Teacher Takeaway series, series 3. So if you please keep going, next week, one more, and you will complete it. So thank you very much to everyone. Well done for joining. Really, you've done a really good job.